Welcome to Dare to Dwell, a podcast with the Daughters of St. Paul. We're so glad you're here. For this season, the sisters met up with college students and campus ministers at the Seek Conference in St. Louis, Missouri, to talk about their experiences and questions about the Catholic faith, deepening our prayer life, and more. Join Sister Benedicta and Sister Orianne as they reflect on the students' questions and comments and dive deeper into the topics they bring up. Enjoy today's episode.
Hello and welcome to Dare to Dwell, a podcast with the Daughters of St. Paul. I'm Sister Julie Benedicta.
I'm Sister Orianne, Pietra, René.
And today we are going to hear a bunch of different thoughts and questions, mostly questions this time actually, around the topic of vocation.
Yes.
Which is, of course, a topic near and dear to most of our hearts, but in a particular way to our hearts. So we are excited to jump into this. And if you haven't been listening this season, what we've been doing is back in January, we went to the Seek conference and invited a bunch of the attendees there. So mostly young adults, a lot of college students, to come and to sit with us and to just have some conversations about the spiritual life and about media and about all these different kinds of things. And we invited them to ask us anything that they wanted to ask at the end. And so that's where a lot of these questions about vocations and discernment and that sort of thing came up. So we're excited to dive into that topic.
I guess before we dive into the questions themselves, just a refresher in case you're wondering, vocation comes from the word vocare, which means to call. You'll notice that it has the same root as vocal cords. Yeah, because it comes from that to call. And specifically the type of vocation we are dealing with here is like the capital V vocation, so to speak. So your state in life, basically.
Yeah, primarily.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to start with Patrick, who's a seminarian, and he has been kind of talking a little bit about how he is very exposed to vocations that especially men are called to the priesthood, to men's religious communities and that sort of thing. And he's curious about how this happens for women. So here's some of Patrick's comments here.
This is not the culture to enter into, religious sisterhood. So how do you stay focused as a sister, and how should any young woman looking to this life stay focused and kind of block out the outside noise of this pop culture that we have today that's saying, that's weird, that's this, that's that, and to really stay focused on staying rooted in your baptism and who you are in Christ and your vocation in Christ?
Our vocation's weird, sister.
Well, if you're looking at weird as not the norm, then yeah.
Yeah,
it is weird.
It is.
I think what's really beautiful here is that, all of us have a call to some vocation, and it may be marriage, it may be some type of religious life. If you are a man, it might be ordination, or it may be a single life of service in the world. And the fact that we are not in a culture that really values any of those things as vocations, yes, that makes it so much harder, but actually, as Christians, rejoice. Because when you are persecuted for Christ, everything kind of comes into focus, right? It's so clear what is not of him.
Yeah.
Or at least it's clearer than it might otherwise be. So in that sense, there is an advantage. I'm not saying the rest of it is an advantage at all, but at least that can be. And I think that, the more we are rooted in our baptism, this reality that the Lord dwells in us, that we are called into fullness with him, and that we are called to bring his people to him. This is such a beautiful way that can really kind of help us understand the desires planted in our own hearts, like the deepest, truest ones, and how the Lord might already be stirring there, how he's already making us lean in one direction often, not always, but often, how we are called to glorify him, how we are called to receive him, how we are called to bring others to him.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting too. He asks, how do you stay focused? We got a lot of questions. We're not going to play them all, of course, but we got a lot of questions when we were sitting down with people. And there were about 6 of us sisters who were sitting down with people, depending on who was available, who was talking to other people, whatever, to do the recordings. And so often questions like, how do you stay focused? What's the best part? What's the thing that draws you the most? So often, myself and the other sisters, our response was immediately Jesus.
I was gonna. Oh yeah. Okay, I called it.
Yeah. I should have just asked you what yours would be. It's, and that's the thing is, like, it can sound trite and it can sound pious. And the fact is that it's real.
Yeah.
It's real. And the more real Jesus is in your life, the easier, not easy, I guess, but like
Possible.
the more possible, the more motivated we are to stay focused on what it is that he's inviting us to. And I love too that he pointed out the rootedness in baptism.
Yeah. Has to be there.
Yeah, our vocation is received at our baptism.
Yes. Yeah, great question, Patrick.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so you were just talking about desires. So why don't we jump to the question that Megan had specifically about desires?
With one's vocation, people will often say that it's desire is put in you by God, and if you have a desire to do something, then that is typically a good indicator that the Lord is calling you to it. However, we have disordered desires. So how would one sort out their disordered desires versus ordered and good desires in the frame of vocation?
This is such a good question.
Isn't it great? Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to use kind of an on-the-nose example and then apply it to something else. I think this is probably one of the easiest, simplest, most common examples. Let's say you're engaged. You already know you want to marry somebody. And you love them. You want to spend the rest of your life with them. You already have every intention of doing so. And it's just like, not that long till the wedding. It is natural and good to desire communion with that person. That is a good desire. Going to the root of that desire, that is a good desire. If we are desiring to express that union in a way that is proper to marriage, which we have not actually done yet, there is a slight disorder there. But the root of that desire for communion, for self-gift, which you are working towards, is good. So I just want to put that on the table because it's a really common, obvious example of how some things go hand in hand almost. So when we look at desires that we have, we often stop short of going to the root. We stay on the disordered level and we never dig deeper to say, like, what's at the root? Where's the good that's coming from? Or at least where's the good that it's being warped?
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Because there is always a good.
Always. Because God put those longings, those yearnings on our hearts. And if they're being warped, that doesn't mean that they didn't originate as good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how can I get to that?
And like, to follow your example, if that same person is desiring something that is only proper within marriage and they discern, to go ahead and save those desires for the marriage, that's one thing. Now, if that same person is engaged to be married and this dude starts flirting with her and asking her out, a desire to go along with what this guy is proposing would also be disordered, right? It would be contrary to the thing that she's already begun walking toward. And it would be pretty clearly true that it would be a bad idea to go out with this other guy, right? And I think that a lot of times some of these questions come up in the sense of like, what if I start to discern a religious vocation, or I enter a religious community, or I make vows, and then I meet someone?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think a couple of things are, first, like, religious vocation is not a backup to not having met someone.
Right.
That's the first thing.
It's not plan B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is the answer is the same as if you were married and met someone else.
And I love that, when we have these desires, sometimes they are clear, like, I desire to do this thing. I desire to be married. I desire to be a sister. But actually, usually it's not that specific.
Right.
And the reason being is because we are called to be one with the Lord. And so our desires may be ones that kind of will guide us to a particular vocation, but we don't always know immediately, yes, I desire marriage, therefore I'm called to be married. A lot of people do know that, especially with marriage. It is the most common vocation. that doesn't make the vocation to marriage easy. It doesn't make it easy to find somebody. It doesn't make
Right.
any of that easy. But some people really know that they are called to be married because that is so on their hearts.
Yeah, and knowing like in the depths of your being that you desire marriage and to be a parent and whatever does not cause, the person that you're supposed to marry and be a parent with to like manifest in front of you, So that's part of it too. And I've known just as many people who felt like they never wanted to have kids, but then once they met the person that they were going to marry, it was like, I never wanted to have kids, but I want kids with him.
Yes.
I want kids with her. And it becomes clear in the concrete. And it's the same thing too, like with religious vocation. I didn't want to generically be a religious sister, right? Like I didn't know that I was called to religious life until I met my community, until I experienced our charism, our mission. In the same way that you don't just kind of like generically enter into marriage.
Right.
Like you have to find the person.
And that's why for each of these vocations, there is a discerning of the desires. There's not a recognition of the desire, which automatically means you are X, Y, Z, right?
Right.
For marriage, there is a dating or a courtship period. You are discerning your desires. You are discerning compatibility. You're discerning all of that kind of thing. For religious life, there is a discernment, again, with different communities because we can't discern these things on our own, guys. And I think one of the biggest pitfalls that I have seen, especially working in vocation work, is people who most sincerely reach out and say, I've been discerning between religious life and what am I? Religious life and marriage life. And I'm struggling to actually figure it out. And when I ask, like, okay, so how have you been discerning? And they say, I've been praying about it. Great. But you can't discern that without other people.
No.
Prayer absolutely is the foundation. Please pray.
Yes.
Please do.
Yes.
But the discernment has to come with other people. And when you discern those with other people, when you meet religious congregations, again, that will help to make those desires clarify.
Yeah.
And that is when we can really say, oh, this desire is pointing here. You will not know at the beginning. And that's a good thing, because if you knew at the beginning, you would miss so much of the lessons that would actually help you deeply live out the vocation that you are called to.
Yeah. This is a really silly analogy, but it's like, you think you're having these desires and you want to go do something, but it's almost like I can't crave a food I've never tasted.
Yeah.
Like if I want a really good burger, it's because I know what a really good burger tastes like, right? I'm not going to just like crave something that I have seen in a picture.
Right. Your body might be aching because you're lacking a vitamin that's not in the foods that you know, but you can't say, oh, it's that food because you don't know it exists.
Right.
Right.
So you have to like go experience the foods before the craving and the food can match up.
Right.
And it's the same kind of thing. Like if you haven't visited any convents, you don't actually know what it feels like to be in a convent.
Right.
If you haven't visited the seminary, you don't actually know what it's like to be a seminarian. And that's a pretty important first step, actually.
And that is why the Lord himself, when he turned to the fishermen, said, come and see.
Yeah.
Come and see.
Yeah.
You can't just sit there praying about it and never go and see. You have to come and see.
And that's why so many religious communities, too, will offer literally retreats that we call come and sees.
Yeah, that's true.
And for the most part, when you do visit these communities, they're going to be very aware that you're in the very beginning stages of your discernment, and they're going to honor that. And, if somebody does try to get you to apply the first time that you visit, you
take it as a compliment. They like you.
Take it as a compliment, politely decline, and go somewhere else. But the reality is that for the most part, the sisters that you're going to be coming in contact with are aware of the process, are aware of where you are in the process, and are not going to pressure you. You're not going to go to a come and see and then like
get locked in.
This is funny. I'm like going to counter myself, but my first time visiting our sisters, I was in the house, and I was on my way to a meal, and this little ancient, she had to have been in her late 90s.
Oh.
This little sister in her 90s who had been a missionary from another country and who also had some dementia happening, was following me down the hall, and she said, are you enjoying your stay? And I said, yes, sister, it's very nice. And she said, oh, good. You call your mom, she sells your things, and you stay.
Wow.
And of course, I knew that wasn't how it worked. So I thanked her, knowing that the vocation director would be having none of it.
Right. That's
And,
so cute.
yeah, it was really adorable. But that's not how it works.
Right.
So
So be at peace if
Be
that's
at
what you're
peace,
worried
yep.
about.
Yeah.
And the reason I love this question so much is that as you begin to discern, naturally, if you have any kind of attraction to a religious order, I would say check it out.
Mhm.
Not the least of reasons is that because the window for discernment is relatively short. It's actually much shorter than it is for marriage.
Mhm.
So I would say check it out. And the thing is, that will give you so much clarity.
Yeah.
And if it's really not for you, you're going to know.
Yeah.
It's going to be made very clear for you. And then you can go on to discern either single life in service to your community or marriage life without having regrets of having to like look over your shoulder and be like, shoot, I should have done this while I had the chance. Did I
Right.
miss my vocation? You'll never be able to do that because you know.
Yeah.
You went, you saw, and the desires planted in your heart clearly didn't match up with a particular charism or particular way of life. And praise God for that clarity.
Yeah.
Praise God.
Yeah, and that brings up one other thing that I think is good to remember is different communities have different rules about entrance age, like what the earliest you can enter and the latest you can enter and that sort of a thing. And sometimes people get a little upset about that or frustrated by it, but just to remember that the Lord doesn't call us to something that's impossible.
Amen.
He's never going to invite us to something that can't be done. So he's not going to call me as a woman to be a priest, for example.
Yeah.
Right? So he doesn't invite us to the impossible. If there is a rule or if there is some kind of a regulation that's in the way of this thing happening, then it's not God's will. Like that's just, he's expressing his will through the temporal reality.
Yeah.
And
it's not a rejection of you.
right.
It's not.
Right. It's again, one more reason to say, praise God for the clarity.
Yes. Yeah. Amen.
Okay, so let's go to the next question. This one's a little bit more like just question. Okay, here's Liz. She just kind of goes for it. Ready?
Okay. What is the biggest challenge about being a nun?
Boom.
Myself.
You stole mine.
Yeah. I mean, technically, I think the biggest challenge of being a nun, if you're called to it, or a religious sister, is the same as being anything if you're called to it.
Yeah.
It's, facing our own brokenness. And we're going to come face to face with it in the vocations that we're called to because God longs to heal us in the vocations that we are called to. But yeah, I mean, it's just me. I am the biggest problem. Yeah. Do you have anything to add?
I literally don't have anything to add to that.
Moving on, next question. Oh,
okay.
Gosh.
Let's move on to Ashlyn, who asks a similar question that might elicit a little bit more response.
During those times that you were still trying to like figure out your vocation, like I'm going to say this one. What was the hardest part of making that decision of I'm going to be a nun? It was like things that were like you kind of had to not give up, but like things that you were like kind of concerned about when you were choosing to be a nun.
Great question. So because of the discernment process, you don't just decide to be a nun, actually, which I think is a very common misconception. What you do is you apply to enter postulancy. Postulancy is a period of varying lengths depending on the congregation. For us, it's 2 years. The word postulant or postulancy comes from the word to posit, to ask, right? It's a time where you're living the life of the community and asking the question deeper, Lord, are you calling me here for the rest of my life? So actually, you do that first, and you're already kind of part of the congregation. So you have to make the decision to put your job on hold, your life on hold, maybe quit your job. I had to quit my job to do that before you have any clarity at all. I think in my personal case, after postulancy, I still didn't know 100%. Is God calling me to take vows?
Yeah.
I did know God was calling me to discern in the novitiate, to discern the vows specifically. So I applied to enter novitiate. I was accepted. It was during novitiate that I personally received clarity about whether or not I should take the vows. Obviously I did because I'm here. For me, the hardest thing that was between me and postulancy, when I had not yet determined if the Lord was calling me to be a nun, was the strife on my family that it created, to the point where I felt like I was breaking my family apart. And I almost retracted my application because I wanted to maintain peace in my family. And for me, as I was grappling with this and praying with this, the Lord, thank God, broke through and said, like, you want to bring peace to your family. Who is peace? And I realized in that moment that if I was saying no to peace, if I was saying no to the invitation I knew at that point was coming from God, if I was saying no to peace himself, how could I possibly expect to have peace in my family? Yeah. If I was saying no to letting peace in, what I was really wanting was for the status quo, stagnant, quote unquote, peace to be kept. I was not actually pursuing peace. And the moment I realized that, I was like, okay, if I actually want real peace for my family, I have to say yes to peace. I have to say yes to God. I'm keeping my application in. And here I am.
Yeah.
And my family was okay.
Yeah, I think that just to underline what you're sharing, Sister Orianne, the reality that discernment is such a process, that it's not a one-time decision, that I make the decision to apply for postulancy. I make the decision to ask to enter novitiate. I make the decision to ask to make my first vows. I make my decision to ask to renew my vows over and over
like
and over
5
again.
times, yeah.
Yeah. And then I make the decision to ask to prepare for final vows. And then I ask for permission to make my final vows, right? And each one of those steps is a real discernment and a real part of the process of deepening not only my discernment and my decision making, but also my identity within the reality of what the Lord's calling me to, right? Like each time I make one of these little discernments, which they don't feel little in the moment, but
No.
you know, they add up to a pretty big one. But each time I make one of these discernment steps, the Lord is clarifying for me something of what he has for me, something of what he's inviting me to. And that's one of the really beautiful things. And the other thing that I love about it so much is the community is part of the discernment. You know, sisters who know me very well, who know the things that I struggle with, who know my quirks, who've lived with me, and they know what it's like to live with me.
A joy. You're welcome.
And all of that, they are involved in this decision making. And it's not as if they're like evaluating me and like,
no,
you know, holding a clipboard and following me around or something.
Right.
But they're sitting with me and saying, okay, you're praying about this. You're thinking that you should, you know, move forward with this or whatever. And it seems to me that what you're hearing from the Lord is also resonating with what I'm understanding and that sort of thing. So it's really beautiful to me that I'm not alone in it, that it is a two-way discernment. That's something that it can be a little bit intimidating, but it's actually more than anything, it's really beautiful.
And I think it brings us a lot of peace because we don't have to be constantly doubting we made a good or a bad discernment.
Yeah.
Because the community is discerning with us and they have the charism living in them, right? They can see it present or not present in someone. They can see whether or not community life will be healthy and fruitful for you, or if it's not what you're called to. They can see all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that the Holy Spirit really is present in our sisters and moving in them, like it gives me, again, like it can be a little bit intimidating. I don't deny that. But it gives me so much peace knowing, like, if I'm feeling this in the moment, when I hit a time of desolation, which will come, it will come.
Always does.
If my sisters have also discerned together with the Holy Spirit this reality, I can be sure that I have not made a bad discernment because I made it with God, with them.
Yeah. And then just to touch on the last part of her question, what were some of the hardest things to give up?
Mhm.
I would say that the things I thought were hard to give up when I first was giving them up and entering
Mhm.
are not the things that I would say now are hard to give up.
Yeah.
I think at the time it felt like it was hard to give up having my own car,
Mhm.
you know.
Oh, yeah, my car. I missed my car so much when we first entered.
You know, some of the autonomy, some of the time with family, you know, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
I think some of the things that are harder to give up now are the moments when I don't really feel like doing the thing that the community's doing right now. You know, and knowing that I have told God that I am giving him all of me, which includes these several hours
Mhm.
that this other thing is happening that I don't want to do.
Mhm.
So I think, you know, I mean, there's a lot of variety in that every day different things are challenging. Some things
Sure.
are easier and some things are harder depending on the day, depending on my mood, depending on who I'm living with in that moment.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's hard to know like what exactly would be the hardest thing. I think probably the top 5 things that most people who aren't in religious life would put on the list would be pretty far down the list, actually,
Often.
for most of us.
Often. Yeah. Not always, but often, yeah.
Mm-hmm. How about you? The hardest thing?
I think for me, the hardest thing was family.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what I have discovered having entered is that I didn't really give up my family, you know?
Yeah.
It changed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It drastically changed, but in the end, for the better. It did not feel like that in the moment. It did not even look like that in the moment. But I think I entered, like 6 or 7 years ago now. And, you know, my family has come so far. And I think God has used even my physical absence to heal a lot of things when you know, because I was acting as like, you know, peacemaker or whatever in the family. So that was part of the reason I was afraid to leave. But other people, they rose up and they took that role. And I didn't necessarily think they could have, and they did. They came into the fullness of who they were as I'm coming into the fullness of who I am bit by bit. And that means that as our relationships changed and morphed and were challenged, we could actually come to deeper connections than we would have had before. And certainly that came with a lot of pain and struggle, but it came nonetheless. And
Mm-hmm.
if I hadn't said yes, again, none of that would have happened.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful. It's been a very painful journey, but it's been probably the most beautiful and fruitful of my life. My mom was baptized after I entered.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all of these things. And I'm so grateful that the Lord broke through that one day and was like, whose peace? I'm like, oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So just to say, yeah, are things hard to give up? Of course they are. Are they worth it? Of course it is.
Yeah. And the thing is too, we have to remember that we're giving some things up, but they're all things that are temporary anyway. And the thing that we're gaining
Yeah.
is the eternal God of the heavens.
Yeah.
You know, we're gaining something so much more.
You're saying yes to God.
Mm-hmm.
And everything good is held in him anyway.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay. Here is a question from Gabrielle.
Question about religious life, personally for you. So I heard it was like this saint book. I think it was Saint Therese. She said she used to hate washing the dishes, but when she started like looking at the little things and offering them up to God, it became her most favorite thing. Do you have something that you didn't like doing in the religious life, but then you're like, actually, like I find like God now through this?
okay. So when I was a teenager, I really didn't like Saint Therese. And it was because of stuff like that. I was not holy enough. Okay, I was immature. But when I saw stuff like that, I'm like, oh my gosh, seriously? If you hate it, just say you hate it, you know? I didn't understand how that kind of transformation could take place. And I think now I'm starting to understand. Now Saint Therese is such a good friend to me. God bless her. And, you know, there are so many things that we dislike doing or that are difficult for us or whatever. And we are asked to surrender in those moments. We are asked to find Jesus in those moments. And I think for me, I wouldn't say any chores have become my favorite because of this, but I would say that sometimes when hard things happen or when things I hate doing pop up, I can say like, for you, Jesus, and for you, Jesus has kind of morphed into hi, Jesus. And that has kind of morphed into, oh, Jesus. You know? I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it totally does. It totally does. And I think I would also say that I have not had anything that I strongly disliked suddenly become a thing that I love.
No.
What you're sharing reminds me of, I don't remember if you remember, like 2 seasons back, we had Sister Patricia Mary on the podcast sharing her favorite Bible verses. And I invited her to share a little devotion that she has where she constantly gets interrupted during the day.
Oh, yes, I do remember this.
Anytime she gets interrupted and something's like super inconvenient or whatever, her response is always, yes, dear.
So good. I have literally seen her do that when she thought she wasn't being observed.
Oh, yes. Yes, I have to.
Yeah.
I have to. And
so beautiful.
So it's a similar approach to what you were sharing. And I think for me, I would say something similar. You know, like there are things that I don't enjoy doing. There are things that I don't like being interrupted with. However, there have been times where I go ahead and I surrender the time or I surrender the energy or I surrender whatever it takes to do the thing that I'm being invited to do. And some really beautiful encounter with one of my sisters happens. Or, you know, I'm helping with something and somebody shares a part of their heart that really touches me.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's not that task suddenly became a favorite thing, but that my saying yes to the Lord and to my sisters becomes a favorite thing.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not going to magically enjoy sweeping. I'm not going to magically enjoy ironing. Although actually ironing chapel linens did become something I actually kind of enjoyed. But you know, that sort of a thing, it's not going to become suddenly my favorite way to spend my time. But saying yes to my sisters, saying yes to my Jesus, that's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, so we're going to look at, we're going to hear what Alexandria's question for us was. And I think we've touched on quite a bit of it, but just in case there's a couple things you want to throw in there. But then there's also something that she doesn't exactly say, but it reminded me of some stuff that maybe we could talk about too.
Okay.
So here's Alexandria's question.
I just kind of want to know, like, especially coming from someone who has no idea where they want to go in their lives. I've looked into discernment. I've looked into that type of thing. How do y'all get to where y'all are? Like, what did it for y'all? Because I really do want to know.
Yeah, this is so good. I think the way that we got here is that we moved from looking into something to doing it, right? We moved from looking into discernment to discerning. And that discernment could have easily led to, no, not religious life. Okay, so what's next?
Yeah.
You know? And I think, again, this is the most important thing. You can research something as much as you want. It's never going to answer the question of where you are called to in the church. You have to discern.
Right. And the thing that it made me kind of want to say, not that this is necessarily what Alexandria was thinking,
right?
But I know that I have met women who have felt like discernment was almost the goal.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, like and I think it was just the way she said, I've looked into discernment. I don't think it's what she meant, but I've heard people use phrases like that before and literally actually mean like, I've looked into being a person who kind of discerns, you know, and not really knowing where that's going to end, because discernment is supposed to be a temporary phase.
Right. Very temporary.
And it's supposed to lead to something more permanent.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad she asked that question. It's a very good one.
Yeah.
Because with a lot of other things in our life, especially like job searches and stuff, that's what you do. You research it. And if it doesn't If you're like, I could never do that job, or there's another job that I like better, you just don't apply. You
Yeah.
know, it really is that simple with discernment, because this is at the service of the glory of God and the communion of the church and all these things. We have to do it together with others. Research won't cut it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other piece too is, like you're saying, you have to actually do it. You don't just think about discerning. You don't just pray about discerning. You don't just research discerning. You have
do
to
it.
actually do it and talk
Yeah.
to other people about it. But the other piece of that is like, I think it can go against even the way that our generations, I'm including myself as an elder millennial, all the way down to the younger students that we were talking to. Like, I think there has become something in our culture in the past several generations where we don't like to do stuff.
Yeah, I
Like,
know.
I like to hold my calendar open and know what all of my options are and then Friday afternoon make a decision about what I'm going to do Friday night.
Right.
Or
I want to know before I do it. I want
Yeah.
certainty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what if a better option pops up? Or what if I get this phone call that I'm hoping for? Or what if I just don't feel like doing anything? I'm just going to not commit to anything until it's time. Right. And that doesn't, it works okay for our social calendar. It's not the best for our social calendar, but it really doesn't work for discernment. Yeah.
I'm a huge planner.
I am not.
I have become slightly less of a planner since entering the convent, where your plans will be continually upended. But yeah, I think for me, it was that lack of certainty. But yes, for so many people, it's, well, what if it's this though? And I just cut out that option by pursuing a different one,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But you know what? You're not though, because if you discern something and you get a yes, then that's it. And if you get a no, you haven't cut out the options that are actually possible. So be at peace there. You're not cutting out God's will from your life by accident, by discerning a possibility, if that's any comfort.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a somewhat related but slightly different question here.
Coming from a youth minister background, I have been encountering many of my teens, can't say many, it feels like a lot, coming to me with interest in discerning the vocation of becoming a sister. And in particular, again, I've showed your media and stuff to them, and they've been really drawn to it, including a 7th grader, I minister in middle school. And she was so eager about it when I shared it. And she was just like, well, how do I enlist now? And I'm like, whoa, slow down. Like, let's pray about this. And really, really trying to kind of draw her like, it's not something, it's God's going to call you to it. And I guess I'm just kind of wondering, what kind of advice can you give to somebody, especially that young, at that age? Once you're a little older, I feel like there's a couple more steps you can take, but what kind of steps can someone as young as even in middle school take towards really discerning that?
So good. How do I enlist now?
First of all, that's adorable.
It is.
Second of all, I think it's really important to recognize that, yes, first of all, you're not yet at an age in our society where you can fully discern that for sure.
Yeah.
However, when kids are toddlers, we give them dolls. What do they do with the dolls? They feed them, they wrap them, they put them to bed. They are practicing the vocation of motherhood, right? When we give a little boy a truck or a girl, I played with trucks all the time.
So did I.
Yeah. And the boy drives around the truck and he picks up all the people from work. There's a real importance in recognizing that just because you are young does not mean that you do not have desires that are important to recognize. And if you are someone who is with someone who is young who has expressed interest in religious life or the priesthood, it's important to recognize that may not be potentially their vocation. It's also important to recognize that potentially it might be. And to allow for the openness for them to talk about that, to maybe meet some people who are priests and religious and talk to them just the same way that they meet people who are married and get to view their marriages from the outside. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. They might want to learn about saints who were priests or religious, just as they might want to learn about saints who were married and had kids or whatever.
Yeah.
Let them learn, let them explore.
Yeah.
But make sure that they know that this discernment is an ongoing process so that they don't feel like they somehow made their identity around this thing and then it turns out not to be their vocation and they have a crisis. Don't do that. But that openness and encouragement with healthy boundaries, that's a great thing.
And one thing they're never going to regret is learning to pray.
Right.
And learning to pray deeply.
Number one.
And, studying their scriptures and, spending time in adoration. They're never going to regret that.
No, that's forever.
So those are places to start. Those are things to do.
Mhm.
I will say she's talking about a 7th grader, so that's a little bit young, but we do have several communities do have programs for young women who are in high school. So anybody
Yes.
who's graduated from 8th grade and on up.
We have our St. Paul's Vocation Club.
We have a St. Paul Vocation Club. We have a St. Paul summer program where girls can
Mhm.
actually come stay with us for a week. I think the Salesians have something similar in the summers. So those kinds of things exist as well, so that they can be, meeting sisters. Like a lot of kids don't go to schools that are taught by sisters anymore.
Right.
They don't have a lot of exposure. So a little bit of exposure and familiarity isn't a bad thing, because
Mhm.
that can either increase the desire and interest, or it can be like, oh, well, maybe not.
Right. Which
You
is
know?
good.
Which is all good.
Yeah.
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 So these kinds of things are also possible. The other thing I think I mentioned to Caitlin when we had this conversation with her was, there are so many sisters who would love to be pen pals with a young girl. So if she wants to, start writing letters or something to a
Mhm.
convent, for sure she'll get replies.
Mhm.
These kinds of things, she can get some of her questions answered and things like that as well.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I thought that was a really sweet question.
that is really sweet.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, like, I converted at that age.
Mm-hmm.
We are capable of much
That's
more
a
than
big
we
decision.
think we are. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There's not. I mean, I didn't lock in my life vocation. I wasn't prepared for that.
No, but it's still a big decision.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more stirring in people's hearts at that age than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah. Okay, so this is Crystal's question. She takes it from a slightly different angle here.
I think it's more of like, how do you know what your vocation is? I think, like, for me, I think growing up, I was always like, oh, I don't want to get married. Like, maybe that's not my, like, vocation. Maybe singlehood is. And, like, I did for a minute think about sisterhood. And, like, just moments in my life where I'm like, what if this was my vocation? And now I feel like I am open a little bit more to the marriage life. But I think it's, like, just really scary to think about it. I think, like, just all the vocations, like, oh, what if I'm single for, like, the rest of my life and I'm lonely? But, yeah, I think just, like, where do you start? And, like, how do you, like, pray with the intention of trying to find your vocation in life?
This is a great question.
Mm-hmm.
We will experience loneliness in every vocation.
Yes.
So I just want to put that on the table as a starter. There is no vocation that you can pursue or that God calls you to where you will escape moments of loneliness.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
I have really dear friends who've told me that some of the loneliest moments of their lives was when they were nursing a newborn and had no adult contact.
Mm-hmm.
They were married in a happy marriage. They had kids. And they were incredibly lonely. I know I have experienced times of loneliness in religious life.
Even though you're surrounded by people who love and care for you. Like it's the most natural
Like I live
thing.
with 80 women and I still manage to find myself lonely sometimes,
It is the most natural thing. And there is a deep void in us that is longing for God. And
yeah,
it will be fulfilled at the end when we have the beatific vision. Until that moment, we always have the possibility of moments of loneliness. However, it is true that there are different ways of living with others, and some of those may really either attract us or bring us a sense of fulfillment more so than others.
Mm-hmm.
That is certainly very true when we are discerning our vocation. But I wouldn't say that a fear of loneliness is a reason to choose. Like it's
No.
not the reason you would choose a vocation.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the other thing that comes to my mind for this is just like, okay, so when I am lonely,
Mm-hmm.
there are a couple things that I can do. I can sit in the loneliness and just feel it and be sad and maybe feel bad for myself.
And eat ice cream.
And eat, well, it's one of the things that we don't really have a lot of.
Yeah, don't do that, guys. It's bad advice.
Or I can go to chapel and I can talk to Jesus about it. It's a better decision, right? And then another option, also a good decision. I'm not trying to evaluate these or put these in any particular order, but another good option is to remember that the great commandment is to love God and to love my neighbor.
Yes.
And if I'm feeling lonely, it's possible that there's someone else around me who is also feeling lonely who would appreciate my reaching out, my seeing if they needed help with something. Again, I live in a house with 80 people. So there's a good chance that if I'm feeling lonely, actually, I've done this before. There have been times when I was feeling lonely. And so I went to the kitchen and I started making popcorn. And that smell permeates the whole house.
The vultures.
And it will draw people to the kitchen, right? So like by serving my sisters and making a little snack, I end up with people to talk to.
It's funny
You know?
because it's true.
It is, but it's a funny example of it. But there are other ways of reaching out. Like, is there someone that I know who's in a nursing home and maybe also is lonely and would appreciate some company? Just recalling that the Lord has invited us to love our neighbors ourselves, and we love our neighbors for the sake of our love of God, and that is a potential solution to our loneliness, regardless of what vocation we happen to find ourselves in.
And I think, so my ice cream quip is because there was this whole era of rom-coms, right? Where every time, it was like a trope. When the girl would break up, she would be so lonely and she would sit on the couch and eat ice cream and watch sad movies and cry, right? Until she found another guy.
Right. It was like Ben and Jerry were the hangover people, yeah.
Yeah. So that is really important to recognize, that those periods of in-between waiting, whether we are looking for our vocation, whether we are already in the vocation that we know is ours, that is not time to waste, right? Those in-between times, it's not a time to sit on the couch and eat ice cream and weep. Like, it's a time where our desires can be made clearer to us so that we can actually gift ourselves more fully in the vocation that we have. It is a time where the Lord can teach us so much about reliance on Him and so much about the gift of who other people are in our lives. It's not a time to waste and fill until we get something else for ourselves.
Right.
And the more we can recognize it, as you were saying, Sister Benedicta, ways to reach out and all that kind of thing, to go to chapel, to reach out to other people, the more we're able to make ourselves available to God to be made a gift of. And that is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Okay, here's Kara's question.
What is something that you still kind of like, not to be, hopefully this isn't too deep, but what's something that you struggle with still, like trying, maybe is it hearing God's voice or just whatever comes to mind?
Myself.
All the same things that I struggled with before I entered.
It's interesting. Like I've grown so much since I entered the convent, and I have truly grown in my ability to hear the Lord, to understand the Lord quicker, to be able to jump when He says jump instead of 5 hours later. But I think it's just a natural part of humanity to continue to struggle with things like hearing the Lord or accepting what you hear Him say, you know?
Yeah.
And living out of it with a fully willing spirit.
Yeah.
That full like Marian fiat.
Yeah.
That is something that we will struggle with on and off, and grow in until we give our final yes to the Lord when He comes to bring us home, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of joke that it's all the same things that I did before I entered, but in some ways that's true, right? Like we are who we are, and we will continue to be that person until heaven, and even in heaven. And I think though that the struggle can become deeper and it can become different. Like my desire for holiness probably has grown, and so my struggle for holiness also has grown, right? But it's also deepened and it's changed and it's morphed and it's all of these things. And so, there's the not super helpful quip that people will sometimes say, like, wherever you go, there you are. It's true.
Ta-da!
It's true. Like, you just are who you are, and you're going to struggle with some things for the rest of your life, regardless of where you find yourself. But that's okay. And as long as it's continuing to be a struggle, and I don't know, that sounds negative, but like, as long as we continue to struggle with the things that we're struggling with and we don't give up on them,
Yes.
or we don't tell God, well, guess what? I just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Then we haven't lost. You don't lose until you give up in the spiritual life.
Right. And I think that's so important. And I like what you said, Sister Benedicta, about how we are who we are now and in heaven, right?
Mhm.
The beautiful thing is that through however long we have between the now and heaven, it's true. The Lord gave us a personality, guys. I mean, it's you. It's
For better
you.
or for worse.
For better or for worse. But between now and heaven, he is working on perfecting it, bringing it to completion, healing it, filling in those broken parts, right? So when we are in heaven, it is us redeemed, healed, made whole, the glory, if you will, of our personality. And we are no longer broken. We are healed. So what we will look like in heaven, it's still us. It's still our personality, but in a way that is so full and so made whole that I don't know if I would even recognize myself, like from the beginning of my struggles to heaven. And yet, you know that you would.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's my personality. Like, that is such a beautiful thing. So don't give up on this struggle, because the more we let God into that struggle, the more we let God into those areas of brokenness, the more he brings our personality to fullness, to beauty, and the more it can glorify him. And in heaven, we will see that perfectly.
Okay, here is our last question for this episode, and this comes from Ashley.
Maybe in a brief way, what was like the thing that made it the easiest to say yes to religious life?
It's a good question.
It is.
You know, I don't have an answer because I'm pretty sure it's nothing. Like Jesus.
Yeah. Honestly, it is Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so I know I've shared my story before, but basically I discerned with the sisters. So the reason I first started discerning was I was in adoration and I heard Jesus inviting me to consider being all his. And I didn't know what that meant, but it ended up leading me down this path of discernment, right? And so I went down this path of discernment. I was really attracted and thought it was really cool, but then also just like decided to be done, kind of. I can't even actually really remember how that happened. I just stopped being in contact with the sisters. And about 8 years later, I was in the kitchen, I was making myself something to eat, and I realized or I heard the voice of the Lord again in my mind and in my heart. And I'd been praying, you know, I was doing youth ministry and stuff at this time. So I was probably praying while I was cooking even in that moment. And I heard the Lord say something to the effect of like, why do you not want this gift that I'm trying to give you? And there was something about me, about that question, like as if I was rejecting his gift. And he didn't say it in like a blamey way or like to make me feel guilty or shamed or anything, right? It was just like a genuine question, like, I want to give you this gift and why don't you want it? There was something about that just like pierced me. And within 2 days, I was on the phone with the vocations director and saying, hi, remember me?
From 8 years ago?
Yeah. So I think that was the thing that made it the easiest for me, was just recognizing that the Lord he asked me to be all his. And then he said, this is a gift I'm trying to give to you. Don't you want it? And so it was just kind of like, not that it was easy, but it made it desirable in a way that made it possible for me.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, when you see Jesus on the other side of that question with his hand out, I don't think it makes it easier.
No.
But I think it makes it, at least for me, like, how can I say no?
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes it possible.
It makes it possible.
I think it's never going to be easy, but it does become possible.
And life-giving. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. So this was really beautiful. We did have a question from Rebecca that I can't find right now. If I find it later, I will throw it in there. Rebecca asked a question about what is charism. And that is such a good question. And so I thought, why don't we spend a whole episode talking about that? And so we have a special episode for you guys coming up after this one with like so many sisters and priests and brothers and nuns and all kinds of people talking about their charisms. And we're excited to share that with you. So that'll be next time.
It's going to be cool.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. So until then, we'll be praying for you.
Please pray for us. God bless you.
Thank you so much for listening. Dare to Dwell is a production of the Daughters of St. Paul and is brought to you by our generous supporters on Patreon. For more information about our sisters or ministry, or to learn about how you can support us, visit connect.pauline.org/Patreon. God bless you.